Welcome to the Free the Bear podcast. My name is Bill. This is episode 3, Revenge of the State. It's the third and final part of our interview with Theo, founder of the California National Party. Forbes and I discuss with him grassroots plans for the party and how you can get involved. So sit back, enjoy, and as always,
Free the bear. Grrr.
And I want to know what you guys think of who you see as a potential hero for the party. The person I see right now, and I'm not necessarily totally hopeful on him, is Tom Steyer. He's a compromise to me. He's a billionaire who's done a lot of good work recently. He, to me, would be the guy, if he stepped up, he might move the meter a little bit. But like I said, I'm not holding my breath for him. Who do you guys see, besides us in the grassroots movement, someone outside of the party stepping up and becoming someone who can help California independence?
If I can be perfectly blunt, like, again, Tom Steyer, I noticed a little bit about, and, I know Gavin Newsom. I think that, it's one of these situations where I don't see an outside figure, really. I think there's going to be some unknown. I'm not saying like it's us, but I'm just saying like it's going to be some unknown person that's going to come out of the woodwork. The reason why I say that is that there is such a psychological break you have to make. And most of the time in history, it's usually people who are not already kind of so juiced into the ruling class who make the changes. Like, for example, like there's not like like Lord Halifax or whatever you want to discount, something from England who was interested in American independence. There's people already so juiced into the system. Now, granted, you could even say the same thing about George Washington. He was a large landowner, but the standards of the day, like, he was still a provincial. He was still not part of that system whatsoever. He was not a royal governor. He was not given the hand of fate from England or anything like that to take charge or anything. It's going to be someone we just don't know. It's going to be probably something so random it's going to blow our minds in a few years, like looking back, because again, the march of history is speeding up, and it could be very, very funny who comes out of the woodwork. Again, it could be someone that none of us could even imagine a few years from now. It's like, oh yeah, that's actually the provisional president. It's like, I didn't see that coming, and I don't think most of the time people will. I mean, like, not to make a more dramatic example, but like, what was it? Fidel Castro was basically a divorced lawyer who got off a boat with 12 guys and went into the jungle, and all of a sudden became like, again, like, the masters of Cuba. I'm not saying, again, like, we're going to take to the hills like, Che or anything like that. We don't want violence or anything, but that example, Fidel Castro was an absolute nobody among nobodies.
Yeah, and I mean, I think getting back to the birth of the California National Party, the start of the California independence movement, I looked out and saw no one advocating for the solution. I found a couple of other people who agreed with it. And when you start something like that from the very beginning, so many people say, this is impossible. What you're trying to do is impossible. You should just give up. You should just forget it. And I think what you realize when you're a couple of years into that struggle, and the hard part is not now. This is the easy part. Our leadership committee had barely any turnover over the course of the last year. Usually there would be 50% turnover. And, trying to convince someone to be the 10th person in a political party is a lot harder than trying to convince someone to be the 1,000th person in a political party. So a lot of the hard work has already been done. But I think the real point I'm trying to make is we're waiting for some hero to come along and save us. The only heroes left are us. We are the heroes we're waiting for. And either we will accomplish this task, either we will pull this boulder up the mountain no matter how hard it is and no matter how long it takes, or no one will. And so I would say, look not to some benevolent billionaire who will, come around. I would say, let's build the future that we can believe in, no matter what it takes, and that we are the heroes we've been waiting for.
And I will add on to that. If we could get someone, an assemblyman or a state senator, that would be monumental. That might be a tipping point for us. It would get national attention. It would give us real legitimacy. It would be a shock to the establishment. So, Forbes, you might be right. It might be someone, it could be one of us becoming assemblyman or a state senator or, what have you. But sometimes I think about this, and it's a very daunting task that we've all dedicated ourselves to.
It really is. I mean, and, I think, maybe in a way that, I think the pod goes back to your question. I think you could be right about, someone kind of jumping on board. If someone, again, if there's an assemblyman or a state senator or of any, statewide office would actually say, I've come to the conclusion that, independence is key and the California National Party is in the right direction. I think it's almost like if that's it, it's almost like that's the cherry on top of the cake. If that happens, then we know, again, this is a real deal. Even if it's early on, maybe we don't have much support as we wanted. If someone would actually do that, those guys, they check the wind any which way. Again, these are very fair weather sailors, and they must be see which way the wind's blowing, and they need a weatherman to tell them. So I think that would.
Yeah, and what I definitely agree with you on is what a game changer it'll be when somebody who supports the party becomes, makes their way into the state assembly. That will attract so much press, that will attract so much attention, and then we get a third voice in politics. We get a voice that actually cares about Californians. We get a voice that isn't worried about these rulers thousands of miles away who don't care about us and don't share our culture. We get a voice for us. And I think we should look at our medium-term goal is the liberation of our people, but our short-term goal is one assembly member, one state senator, because that will change the entire conversation. That will give us a platform and legitimacy. So, if anyone who's hearing these words, if you want to run for office and you share our vision for a free and independent California, then talk to us, get a hold of us, because we need to run 100 candidates. We need to run 1,000 candidates, and then we need to run 10,000 candidates. We need to take over this state democratically, and we need to then turn it into a nation. And the people who are going to be the point of that spear are probably people who are hearing me say these words right now. So get involved, join our party, run for office, win, and help us change the world.
Oh gosh, that's what it's all about. I volunteered for a presidential campaign this time that started in 23rd place and ended up in 5th or 6th place. So if you're out there and you need you're going to run, I will volunteer for you in a heartbeat. If we could get someone to run, I would donate hours a week of my time to get them elected. And I know that I'm not the only one. We have a very passionate base. So if you're hearing this and you want to get that 6-figure salary from California assemblyman and make some good changes in life, we're here for you.
Go to the website, californianational.party, fill out the information under volunteer, indicate that you want to run for office. I think if you talk to some of the people that we've worked with in the past, such as Michelle Gomez in San Diego County, the kind of support and dedication and passion that we bring to a race for someone who shares some of our views, and you don't have to share all of it, is so much greater than these two giant parties who don't really care about you. We care, and we will phone bank for you. We will fundraise for you. Obviously, if you're going to run for office, you got to do a lot of the heavy lifting too, but we'll be there with you in a way that the Democratic Party, the Republican Party are not, because you're just a number to them. They just do some kind of probability on your victory and then walk on. Whereas to us, you're this precious part of the future.
Theo, can I ask you something? This is kind of something that's been in the back of my mind. Again, if someone runs for an office, right, and someone wants to be a candidate for CNP or at least an ally, you're going to, again, like any campaign, you have to start kind of plotting out, like you already talked about how, you already have kind of the talking points down. Like if someone springs a question on you, you already know how to kind of like say it, because most of the time you did your homework, number one, and then number two, you've kind of heard the same things over and over again, right?
Sure.
What would on the campaign trail for like someone running for office? How would you pitch California independence to people who they're not obviously Trump people, right? Because that's a completely lost cause, and that's actually you're just wasting calories and breath, just speaking to them.
Can I stop you right there, Forbes? I actually have a plan to get some of the Republican and Trump people. I would pitch that, listen, the Republicans are not going to win state office in California. It's a one-party system. But hey, if you get one of us elected, that means you're no longer facing a Democratic incumbent who's been there forever next time around. So that would be my pitch to Trump supporters, is just spiting the Democratic Party.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting point. I would say, though, that, what I would like to talk about briefly is just kind of the nuts and bolts of how you actually get elected in California. And that is, if you want to run for office, what you need to do is you need to go to your Chamber of Commerce. You need to go to your restaurants, your retail establishments, your small businesses, and say, what can I do for you? Because what the California National Party really stands for, as much as anything else, is good governance for California. So the base of any campaign for local office are the small businesses that make up your community. And if you're going to win, you're going to need support from some of those people. So go to them, talk to them. What do those restaurants need? What do those retail establishments need? What do those small businesses need that make your community prosperous? And then, and because because California is drifting into a single party state, that's ever more oblivious and less responsive government by people who can care ever less and manage to stay in power anyway.
Yeah, because they're going to win everything. So they don't have there's again that one party systems always become very corrupted very quickly because of the fact that competition. What do you?
So really what the California National Party can offer and what our candidates can offer for local office is responsive government and finding out what the needs of your individual community are, because we're not going to win office just on an independence message. Some people want that, but people need to know how you're going to govern San Diego. People need to know how you're going to govern Oakland. People need to know how you're going to govern Fresno. They need to know how you're going to make their schools better, how you're going to make their roads better. And I think this is another reason to point back to the Scottish National Party. They are supported by people who don't support Scottish independence because they are known for good government. And I think that's what we can offer the people of California far before we can offer them independence, is just good and responsive government that cares about them. And that's why we favor universal basic income. That's why we favor single-payer universal health care. That's why we favor a housing-first approach to homelessness, so that you have an address for that person, so that then other social services can go in and be given to that person to break the cycle of poverty, to break the pit. Homelessness is a trap. And once you fall into it, it's incredibly hard to climb out of it. And I've known and been very close with people who have fallen into that pit. And the status quo politics of California today are utterly failing those people. And it's not hard. It's not that hard to help those people. It's just that American and California politics have gotten so broken and so focused only on the needs of the richest 20% of the society that our political system literally doesn't care about the lower 50% of people at all. And that's why their lives are getting harder and harder and harder and harder. So what we offer California first and foremost is a hand up, a hand out of that pit of homelessness, healthcare you can actually afford, not a situation where you're getting taxed or penalized or having to pay a fine because you can't afford this racket that the billionaires inflict upon us. And then also, as we move towards an ever more automated society, we will either face the options are universal basic income or revolution, because we will quickly drift into a pre-revolutionary France society where a vast number of people are just barely surviving. And that is not 20 years away. That's 5 or 10 years away. especially with COVID, we're seeing this meltdown in our economy, and everything that can get, because a machine can't catch COVID-19. So everything that can be automated will be automated. So we are launching into this challenging future with ruled by a single party in California and a broken duopoly in DC that doesn't care about our people. And we care about our people.
Now, Theo, correct me if I'm wrong. UBI is part of our platform as well as a negative income tax. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, certainly I think that we're moving towards that. We're going to have both. We're updating our platform right now. And so we're going to have a 2020 platform that has both of those components.
I would say that to me is the most bold policy I've ever seen. And I think, you're talking about small businesses, that those two combined is just, it's going to be an injection of adrenaline to small businesses, and it's going to eradicate poverty. I think it's an incredibly powerful platform. And the universal health care, I love our policy on that. I think once people look at our platform, even if they don't agree with California independence, they're going to look and say, you know what? This is a good option compared to the one corporate Democrat party that runs the state.
Because again, I want to play devil's advocate for a second, because I agree with all this stuff, right? But then, I'm just thinking about how to, put together coalitions, and maybe that this is not part of the coalition. But again, I'm not a Trump. I'm very much a libertarian. Not me personally. I'm just saying this. This is kind of character. Let's just say I'm a libertarian person who is basically just saying okay, what's in it for me? Because I don't really believe in UBI, and I don't believe in again the healthcare thing. But what's in it for me for independent?
Yeah,
health?
well, that's not a hard talking point. Do you want to remove the most burdensome system of regulation that has ever been formulated in the history of the world? A libertarian wants less government. What if we stripped away the most expensive, the most wasteful, the most restrictive, the most ludicrous layer of government almost that has ever been formulated in the history of the world? I mean, we are literally talking about, for people who want less government, we are literally talking about ending all the wars, decriminalizing a whole bunch of things that adults should be able to choose to do for themselves. Even our gun policy is very different from either of these other two solutions quote solutions that these other groups talk about. These two major parties are locked in this death struggle. Our gun solution is to say, well, what if local communities decided the gun culture for themselves instead of being told by some distant capital what to do? What if communities themselves could decide how to handle the gun issue? So I think that libertarians have a lot to gain from our movement. And I want to speak briefly to our friends who, yearn for their own brand of freedom in the north of California. I think what we could offer them is kind of an autonomous region that is supported and cared about by the fifth largest economy in the world, where they could have a lot more of the kind of freedom that they crave than DC will give them as an impoverished and neglected Western state. I mean, they should talk to Idaho about how great it is for them to be ignored and taken for granted by a capital thousands of miles away. And then, let's have a conversation with our libertarian friends about how they can actually be the most free, because I'm in no way convinced that it's under the boot of DC.
Well, let's end it on this note. Forbes, you and we could talk after. We should do a segment just on convincing libertarians to join the party. Because as a former, I voted for Gary Johnson last time around, so I can give a little perspective on why it's so appealing to a person with a little streak of libertarian, a little streak of porcupine. But Theo, I'm going to say that this conversation was uplifting, gave me a lot of hope. I hope it gives a lot of hope to everyone out there. Forbes, thank you for your insight as always. I appreciate a co-host who's vastly smarter than me. It makes my life a lot easier. And
That's a
once
joke.
again, Theo, what's the best way for people to get involved with the party?
Sure. So the best way to do that is to go to the website californianational.party, and from there you can donate, you can volunteer, you can get involved in whatever way you want to help push the project forward. We will create a platform for you to do so. I think this podcast is a fantastic example of that, where you and Sean were excited about it, and we built the infrastructure for you to pursue our mutual goals in the way that best suits you. And that's how we like to really work with volunteers, in whatever way they want to work with us. So yeah, go to californianational.party and get involved. And, I look forward to changing the world and creating the best nation on earth with the two of you and everyone else who is hearing me say these words. And thank you so much for having me on your podcast. And I look forward to working with both of you as we move forward.
All right. Talk to you soon, Theo.
Thanks a lot, Theo.
Thanks, guys.
Well, there you have it. Another episode of the Free the Bear podcast. Thank you very much for listening. If you can, give it a thumbs up. Even if you didn't like it, give it that good old thumbs up and subscribe. I'm very old, but I've been told there is a bell that you're supposed to push or ding or something. So do that. For more information about the California National Party, go to californianational.party. Or on Twitter, vote_CNP. And in conclusion,
Free the bear. Grrr.
hey, my name's Bill, and I'm here to say I want California independence in a major way. Whoa. Yeah.